By way of this introduction, I want to begin a series of tutorials for each of the buttons in the toolbar. Try and zero in on their functionality and what is and isn't useful up here. Just quickly running across them, we know how to open a data file already. It's simply a replication of the file open menu. This next little group is for transforming the data in various ways. You can apply convolution filters to your data. You can combine channels into mathematical and logical expressions, masks, bands, and other entities to create new bands to look at. This Rgb button allows you in certain cases to combine 3 bands into a so-called true color image. The ability to do that kind of depends on what bands are available in the file that you're working with. Here we have sort of geographic transformations where you can take 2 files that are presumably in the same, over the same geographic region, and just stack all their variables into one new file so that you can do comparisons. For example, here we have SST in one file and chlorophyll in another file. How would we difference those or do any sort of comparison? Well, we can't until we co-locate them. The crop tool and the reprojection tool, these two here, we've seen in a separate video, allow you to transform the data to a map projection, cut out smaller regions of the file. In the middle here is the mosaic tool, which really lets you tile several data files into a larger area. There can be some issues along the boundaries of the tiles, but we'll look at that in detail later. These next ones are really about layers. This is a duplicate of the edit layer tool that's available in the layer manager here, enabled when we are looking at a particular layer. This tool and this tool are the same. Here is the color bar tool. We'll look at that in a separate tutorial. We can create contours of our data layer. We can overlay a latitude longitude grid. We can show the no data layer, that is where the values of the data are not a number. This next button, as near as I can tell, is not used. It's, I believe, to invoke this world map location over here, which which will identify where on the globe the data that you're looking at is located. Now we have some more tools collected here. This magic wand tool we will see as a way of selecting pixels in our data layer based on their value. There is a coastline, land and water mask tool here we will look at, and then a bathymetry tool. So those add new layers. These are sort of the manipulation tools where we can select an existing geometry or some layer entity here that we might need to modify or gain access to. By default, you're in the pan tool, and that's a good one to stay in because it allows you to quickly scroll to zoom and grab to pan, so you can move about your data quite quickly. This is a zoom tool that lets you simply draw a box or a region on the screen to zoom in. Here you can create geometries that become regions of interest and layers in the data, so that you can, this sort of creates an empty container, but you can draw rectangles, circles, polygonal shapes, single lines, or a connected segmented line. and then you can enter coordinates in a so-called well-known or WKT format to create new layers. These two are for the pin manager, which allows you to manage point location data. Then you have a whole suite of statistical tools for basic statistics and plotting. And then there is a tool here with some legacy capability to import field measurements that we'll briefly talk about when we come to that tool. But those are all the toolbar buttons. We can actually go to our view menu and look at the toolbar, and there are more that can be added. I'm not going to really go into that, but you can customize the toolbar somewhat and enable even more buttons there.